Hey, this is Stevie. We're just doing a little educational video here on small engine carburetors, whether it be a four-wheeler or a motorcycle, a lawnmower. You know, it doesn't matter. Go-kart, they're all about the same. This is just generally for jetting principle. Even a two-stroke is very similar. It's just got a little bit different circuitry for the low speed. So anyhow, we're going to take this thing apart. It's a beautiful little XR100. I'm not sure about the year. It's really, really clean. It's just been sitting. And what they typically do on these small engines, especially with the ethanol gas that we have now, is they'll plug up the low-speed circuit or the jet. Sometimes the high-speed circuit will get plugged up. We're going to take it off and show you what all that is and how to repair it and what to look for. And we're going to try to show you exactly how the circuit's laid out so you'll understand the principle of how a carburetor works and how to repair this stuff without getting into a lot of grief. So, all right. Okay. All right, we're going to get the bowl off of here. This should be a pretty easy one, I hope. Obviously, this should be done in a clean environment, you know, but maybe I'll give you a little lowdown as we're coming apart. On this side, this is to set the idle speed right here, okay? You'll see that it's got a little, it goes right into a little nipple or a dimple inside of there, and that dimple engages this slanted cut, this chamfered cut on the slide, and it's got to go on that. There's a groove in the other side, and there's a tiny little pin that lines the slide up and keeps it from rotating, so you need to keep aware of that. Now, you can do some adjustment on jetting with this needle going up or down. There's usually 5 slots in there, but for this video, we're just going to show you how to make it run. You know, because a lot of times this is on a video, this is on a vehicle that has been sitting for a little while and now it won't run. Well, that's all, you know, I pick them up all the time like that because I already know right there that the carburetor's plugged up. So this little is a baffle. It keeps air and fuel from sloshing and getting in the jet and messing up your mixture if you're jumping or turning hard or riding a wheelie or whatever. Make sure that goes back on there and it's oriented. There's an overfill tube. If your carburetor is flooding over, it'll drain right out the bottom automatically with that little port, that little tube, and it has to go in the proper direction, which is right there. So make sure that's oriented right when you put it back on. Check the bowl. So let's get the needle out. I'm going to have to get a tool to push that out of there with, so be right back. All right, you can see in this carburetor that it's full of corrosion. This thing sat with either water, which I don't think, but the ethanol fuel is alcohol, and it's a polar solvent. It has an affinity for moisture, so it will pull moisture in like brake fluid. Yeah, this thing's got to come apart. It's corroded up. I'm going to have to get a pin punch to drive that out carefully. But this all has to be cleaned out of here, so I'll run it through like a little bit of sandblast, just very gently. But let me get this out, and then we'll come back and give a lowdown on the carburetor. All right? Okay, so I had to get a little punch to drive the needle, the float pivot out. So here's the needle, excuse me. This is the float, the carburetor float. The needle is down here, and the seat. That's what allows fuel into the carburetor. So let's pull it off, take a look at it. There's the float. And these are, I can't remember the name, it's a plastic float. They don't puncture like old brass ones do. Make sure this tip is on there and that it's not too crudted up. It doesn't look bad. That's the needle. And this is the seat. The seat is connected to the fuel inlet, and it's a direct line right in here. So as the float rises up, it shuts the float level off. As a good rule of thumb, the float level should be somewhat even with this surface or just below. And I'll show you how to check that later as we get done here. I'll show you a little trick on some carburetors. Now, it fills up the bowl. Of course, this is up. I'm going to turn it upside down. It fills the bowl up, and this is the main jet. The main jet is always the larger one, and it's always the lowest one. The low-speed jet's the one that's almost always the culprit, okay? But if you look at it, there's a circuit. The main jet goes right up into the throat of the body, and you can see it right there. It's 2 parts. The jet itself, and then the other part that's upper in there is called the emulsion tube. The emulsion tube's got holes in the side of it. We'll pull it out and show it to you. And what you have to check is that there's air bleeds on the air bell, also on the air filter side of the carburetor, and it runs through right into here, and it starts mixing a little air, and it also helps with a siphoning effect. And as air is rushing through the carburetor, it pulls it up the main jet and into the engine, okay? The jet size is very particular. You need to have it jetted right. You don't usually have to go crazy on the mains. The low speeds will have to be increased a little bit, a lot with modern carburetors, because they've got them so lean from the factory for emission reasons. Now you can see the low speed jet has its own air circuit port, and it runs back down to another air bleed. Those as well have to be verified that they're clean. Now the other part that the low speed jet does is the low speed is coming through here, then it goes over to your air fuel mixture screw, and this is how you set the air fuel mixture at idle, okay, to make it run right. And it runs up to about quarter throttle with this. Then you get to about a third throttle with this, and then your main jet is starting to flow in conjunction with the jet needle on the end of the slide. All right, so what's happening is that there's little teeny holes in here. There's one right there, and there's one right there, and they're controlled by the low speed jet and then the air fuel mixture. So it goes through the jet, goes to the air fuel screw, and then out this little teeny hole, and that's what runs it at idle. And then it starts to pick up on this other little port. So these passageways have to be clear. No matter how clean these jets are, if the passageways in the carburetor body are not clean, it will not run right or at all. So we're going to take them out and see what we've got, and then we're going to verify that we've got flow through everything, and that can be a pill. So let me get them out, and then I'll show you some tools that I've got available that we can use. Okay, so we're going to pull the high-speed jet and the low-speed jet out, and we're also going to pull the air fuel screw out. But before you do this, verify how many screws out it is. So there's half, 1, 1.5, 2, about almost 2 1/4. So we're going to go ahead and pull it out, and there's a little teeny O-ring on these things, and they can cause problems. Sometimes the air fuel screw on older carburetors will be, you know, right here, or sometimes on the other side, but anything about, I don't know, late 90s or up on these Hondas, they're going to be right here on the bottom. So let's lay them out. There's going to be a spring in there and an O-ring and a washer. And you know what, I'm going to leave that O-ring and washer. In fact, I can see right through the port down into here. I can see it as soon as I block off, I can see that it's open. So we don't need to go any further at this point on that. So let's pull the low speed jet out. And sunlight is your best friend with checking these jets. You know, you can use artificial light like in your shop or in the garage or whatever, but sunlight helps a lot. And I'm going to show you this emulsion tube. Let me set the body down here. The emulsion tube's got holes in the side. If the emulsion tube is not clear, it won't run right. So we're going to pull it out, and on the low speed jet, there's holes in the side. It's got its own little emulsion tube as well, but it's got to be cleaned through here. And I'm going to show you some tools that I have to clean jets. These are gas tip nozzle cleaners for like a propane torch, not a propane, but an acetylene torch, or welding tips. You can get them at a welding shop, and they're very handy. Here's another one that you can also get at a welding shop. This is just a hand drill, but it's got tiny little drill bits, and it's indispensable for really tough jobs, but not always needed. I got by without it for many years. But I'll tell you, one of the best things that I found, you can go to you can go to a music store and get some used guitar strings. I have a buddy of mine that gets me these, and these are awesome. You know, you can clip them off, throw them in your toolboxes, but old guitar strings are great. So let's check these jets and see how they look, and then we'll check the main body and see if the main body's plugged up. So let's take a look at these. Okay, so we've got the bowl cleaned out and the carburetor body cleaned out. We've cleaned the jets. The low speed jet was definitely plugged up. So usually that's the culprit. And there'll be numbers on the side, and you can jet it up or down, whatever you need. You know, usually they're running really lean on almost all these modern bikes. However, don't go crazy. Go like 1 step, 2 steps, and test it. So we're gonna put it together, and I'm gonna show you how to check the float level. To set it on these, you can adjust the little tab that the needle hangs on to set the float level. Most of the time, they're good. The plastic ones get tough. They just a full plastic float on some models, and you have to change the float out. You can like bend it slightly. I've heated them very gently with a hot tip of a punch or something like that and bent them a little bit, but you're really better off just putting a new float in it. Okay, so let's just put it back together. The main speed, the main jet and the emulsion tube goes in the main circuit. Just very slightly snug, okay? Low speed jet in the low speed circuit. I have blown out the circuits and checked them, verified it, and if you can't feel it, put a little WD-40 down the jet holes and then blow it through and see if you get it coming out these little ports. You need to verify that they come out this port, and I had good airflow out of both of those. I blew through the air bleeds on the air bell of the carburetor, and I got it meeting here and coming all the way through, so it's working. We're going to reset the air fuel screw. I'm going to set it at 2 because I assumed somebody was screwing with it because trying to make it run. So half, 1, 1.5, 2. Okay, so there's that. Now, just because I know it's going to wash right out of there, but during assembly, do yourself a favor. First couple times going up and down until gas gets in there to lubricate it, they can stick on you. So just throw a little oil on it. Doesn't need much of anything. Get your pivot pin here. I pulled it right off the needle. There's a little hanger right there, and it just hangs right on there. Okay, pretty simple. Everybody gets weirded out by carburetors, and they're so simple. You know, there's really nothing to it. So you just got to understand how it's laid out. Man, I could not hit that. Okay, here we go. So that's it. It's ready to go back together. Now I can see right there that the float level is going to be a tad on the high side, which is not. It starts to seal right there. I'm going to do a slight adjustment on this. And how you do that is right here. Bend that down, set it upside down, and you want that to be almost parallel. In fact, generally you want it parallel. The needle and seat's got a little tiny rod in there that's spring-loaded, and you want the top of the float to be almost parallel. It's a good starting point. Okay, I'm gonna go just a touch more, and then we're gonna check it with a piece of, okay, we're in a ballpark. We're gonna check it with a piece of clear vinyl tube. All right, I almost forgot this piece I was telling you about. And it needs to go right like that. You can see the overflow tube sets right down in that groove. Set it down on there. Do yourself a favor, you're working on these poor bikes. Nobody puts loop oil. You strip one of these off on here, you're done. So put a little oil or something on all these bolts, and you take something out of these little bikes. It'll save you down the road 100 times. Okay, we're just gonna do a quick needle, a quick float level adjustment. You just get a piece of clear vinyl tube. You can get this at any hardware store. I keep them in all sizes around here for all the dirt bikes and small engines. They do a lot better than a lot of this rubber hose sometimes. Plus you can see what's going on. So what you're gonna do is put the fuel line on your tank. You're gonna turn this thing up. Sometimes you can zip tie it on the top up here. You're gonna turn the fuel on, and the float level is gonna find its own level. It's gonna come up to wherever it is. If it's up here like this, you're gonna have to lower it. If it's down pretty much even with the bowl mounting surface, you're in the ballpark. I even like them just a touch lower. But if you're in this area of the mounting surface, then you're in a ballpark, and that's how you do it. It's simple as that. Take it back off, and then you can put your regular bowl drain line on, which is down here. So we're going to put that back on, and that's how you set your float level. So we're going to put it on and see what our float level comes up to, and go from there. Okay, so we just got hooked up the gas line. We turned the gas on. Don't forget, I didn't say, as Stevie pointed out, you got to open up the the bowl drain for it to find level, and it comes up, you know, somewhat. This is like on the money, and if it leaks by a little bit, don't freak out, because when it's been sitting a while, they get a little bit of crud on that needle and seat. You know, you get it on a bike, fire it and run it around, tap on it with the butt of a screwdriver. A lot of times it'll seat better, but so now we're going to put it on, and we're going to test it out. So, okay, so we're going to put this carburetor on. I just wanted to make sure that you understood about indexing and slide. Like I said, here's the speed adjustment the idle speed adjustment has to go up against that camfer on the slide. There's a pin down in there, you can feel it, you can see it, but I don't know if you can see it on the video, that engages with this locator slot, okay? So it sets in there, all you have to do is set it in there, and you rotate it back until you feel it go in the locator slot, boom. There you go, put the slide cap on it, and then you're bolting it on. All right, so let's see if we can get it making smoke. Kick it like a girl. Okay, so we've got it running good. We're gonna send it back to the gentleman who owns it and try to lube up that rear shock, because man, is it squeaky, driving me bananas. Okay, hope this helps you.